The Bucs blow a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter, and with it, likely blow their chances at the postseason. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Please make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcasts. I am James Yarcho, your host of Locked On Bucs, writer for Bucs Report, here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. You guys have already been blowing up the chat here on this live reaction episode. And I have to say, for somebody who talks about the Buccaneers on a daily podcast for 30 minutes an episode, I'm at a loss for words. Like that, I have to laugh through it because this is just so unbelievably ridiculous. To quote the great Michael Scott, it's over. We are screwed. This is the worst. In a game where the Buccaneers had a 28-14 lead with 13 minutes left, where the offense finally looked like it was about to turn the corner, you finally had Evans and Godwin and Ibuka and McMillan and Bucky all out there together. And it started off slow, but as the game progressed, it started to pick up and you started to see, okay, this is what this offense is actually capable of. It looked like the early stages of what we were expecting to see all season long. Mike Evans absolutely dominated this game. Had a couple of scares. He got undercut by Kobe Bryant, hurt his lower back, went out, came back, went down again, holding his shoulder. They checked him out. He said he was good. He came back again, 6 for 132 in his return. He had 8 yards fewer in this game than he had in the first 4 games combined. But it's the same old crap. You didn't get a stop on defense when you needed it the most. You had no answer for Kyle Pitts whatsoever. And I was talking with the insiders quite a bit. I was talking on Twitter, and a lot of people were saying, Pitts only ever looks good against the Bucs. That's not entirely true. Pitts has been a good tight end, but this is why he was drafted as high as he was. This is why, he had so much hype around him, and this is what he's capable of when he's finally utilized in the right way. But the Bucs were handing it to him on a silver platter. And it goes back to what I said all week long. This is a game that if the Bucs win, Todd Bowles doesn't save his job. It would take more than this one game. But this one game, if you lose it, will cost you your job. There's no way the Buccaneers can keep Todd Bowles. And I see a lot of you in the comment section, saying fire him tonight. No, don't fire him tonight. Absolutely do not fire him tonight. I have no faith that this team is going to beat the Panthers twice and still make the playoffs, given what we've seen from the defensive side of the ball. No faith at all. So why fire him now? What good does that do you now? Because then you're going to promote someone on an interim basis. Is it Grizzard? I don't think he's ready for that. Is it Larry Foote? It's certainly not going to be McGahee, the special teams coordinator. So what good does that do you? Does it fire up the team to beat the Panthers twice, get into the first round of the playoffs, and get blown out by the Seahawks? At this point, you ride it out. Just ride it out. Why? Because this was a team that coming into the season had Super Bowl aspirations. They had the talent to make it to a Super Bowl. So why would you not just go ahead, let this thing ride out? You're moving on from this coaching staff in the offseason. If you don't, then I have a lot more questions. But let them ride it out. Maybe they win one of the next 3 and they finish 8-9. Now you get a better draft pick and you're going to add even more talent to an already loaded roster. And then hopefully you're bringing somebody in that can actually coach them up and allow them, or put them in positions to reach their capabilities. Somebody that can actually get this team to reach their ceiling, which is a Super Bowl. What good does firing Todd Bowles tonight do other than send a message that we already know? I'd rather have a better draft pick. I would rather find myself in the top 15 and get a top tier starting linebacker or a top tier starting edge rusher than name an interim coach, get a little bit of momentum, make it to the first round of the playoffs, lose, and now you're picking at 20 instead of 14. I don't know their exact draft position right now, but that's the way that I view this now. It won't change anything except for your draft position. Todd Bowles made this bet. He's got a lie in it. He dug this hole. He's got to get himself out of it. And the only way he's going to get out of it is the day after the season when he sits down with Jason Light and the Glazier family and they say, Todd, we want to thank you for what you did for this football team in 2020 as the defensive coordinator. We want to thank you for winning division titles. But the time has come for you to move on. Because this team is good enough to compete with the best in the NFL. And we didn't see that this year. We didn't see the fight. We didn't see the passion. We didn't see the fire. And it's time to make a change. That's how he's going to get out of this hole. May not be by his choice. Maybe he does decide that he just wants to walk away instead of, you can't fire me, I quit. Maybe he says, I've decided to retire. We've heard those rumors for a little while. The Atlanta Falcons had 19 penalties for 125 yards, and you still lost. They only went 5 for 11 on third down. But those third downs included a 3rd and 7 to get themselves in position for Kyle Pitts' 3rd touchdown of the game. I looked it up. Kyle Pitts, and again, I'm dead serious when I say that he's been a good tight end. I believe that he has the 5th most receiving yards of any tight end since he entered the league. But he has scored 3 or fewer touchdowns in 4 of his 5 seasons. And he got a hat trick against the Bucs in their house. You had Atlanta 3rd and 28. 3rd and 28. Those were the situations where Todd Bowles would typically be licking his chops. And Hassan Reddick made what could have been the play of the game if it wasn't stolen away from him. That was why you paid Hassan Reddick, was for that play right there. He straight up beat his guy man on man and stripped the ball right out of Kirk Cousins' hands. I need somebody from the Referees Association to explain to me how the Falcons managed to recover a fumble that 6 Buccaneers were around. But when the Bucs emerge from a pile with a football, you rule it simultaneous recovery and award the ball to the Falcons. I need a real explanation for that. But even then, you had them 3rd and 28, and you allowed them to complete a 14-yard pass to Pitts to set up 4th and 14. Then you gave up a 21-yard pass to Sills in that basically put them right on the cusp of field goal range. That's on Todd. Plain and simple. I have plenty more to say about this game, the performance of Baker Mayfield, and the fact that this game has reminded me of another epic collapse in Bucs history. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Guys, it's 2025, almost 2026, and those days of waiting for something to become a full-blown emergency before you see a doctor, they're over. No more walking it off for 6 months. No more pretending that weird shoulder stiffness is just sleeping wrong. It's time to take your health seriously, and ZocDoc makes that easier than ever because staying healthy is more than hitting the gym or eating right. It's about actually getting things checked out when something feels off. Using ZocDoc makes scheduling easier. Search for in-network doctors and book right in the app. You get real appointment times listed, including same-day visits, so there's no more back and forth phone calls or waiting weeks to be seen. Stop putting off your doctor's appointments and get the care you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. And with Car Gurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars that you want. Because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. Car Gurus makes that whole process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else so you can shop the way that you want. You'll love being able to filter by everything from mileage to trim to features, so you're only seeing the cars that actually fit what you need, and their price drop alerts are a lifesaver. You get notified the second a car you're waiting for becomes a better deal. That's how I got mine. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for transparent, hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major online automotive marketplace, you're always going to find the best deals. So shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your car today at CarGurus.com. That's CarGurus.com. CarGurus.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you're a true diehard Buccaneers fan, the Everyday or All Access tier is built for you. You'll get one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to LockedOnBucs.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club and unlock all access. You can also find the link in the show notes. I want to talk for a minute about Baker Mayfield because I thought through stretches, this was the best that he's looked in about 2 months. It wasn't always that way, and I voiced my opinion about it on Twitter, and I texted the insiders, and I said, why does it seem like it's only Emeka Egbuka that he can't connect with when they're open? He missed Egbuka on a play that would have iced this game. And he took it on the chin. He took ownership for that. He said the game is on him because of the interception and missing Egbuka on that 2nd and 14. To be fair, I didn't like that play call. He had Egbuka open, so, I may not have liked it, but it could have worked. But I thought in that moment, after Bucky got hit for a 4-yard loss, you needed to run the ball again. That stopped the clock. That helped the Falcons get exactly what they needed out of that possession. But by and large, I thought there were large stretches that Baker looked better than he has looked recently. Again, Mike Evans had a great day. Egbuka, 7 targets, 4 catches, 64 yards. Should have been more. Godwin had a touchdown. Jalen McMillan caught both of his targets. But when you're talking about the struggles the Baker has had, even getting to 150 passing yards, 19 for 34, not great, not terrible, but 277 and 2 touchdowns. How long have we been waiting for him to put up those kinds of numbers? It's been a while. On the flip side, I warned you all. that Kirk Cousins against a Todd Bowles defense is usually a recipe for disaster. He averages over 300 yards per game and almost 3 touchdowns per game against Todd Bowles since 2019. Well, 30 for 44 for 373 and 3. So he did exactly what we all expected him to do. But I got to thinking during this game while my son was having a complete and total meltdown. And I was thinking about that Raise the Flags docuseries that launched on Amazon Prime today and some of these old Buccaneers teams. And I've come to the conclusion that this team reminds me of the 2008 Buccaneers. Some of you may not remember the 2008 Buccaneers, but I'll remind you. John Gruden was the head coach. You had Jeff Garcia as your quarterback. You had, solid offense. You had a defense that was performing well. And the Bucs were sitting at 9-3. It was at that moment that Monty Kiffin announced that he was going to leave after the season to join his son Lane. And I believe that was USC at the time. From there, the Bucs lose to the Panthers 38-28. That one was a Monday Night Football game when D'Angelo Williams and Stewart went absolutely ballistic. You lose to the Falcons 13-10 in overtime. You lose to the Chargers 41-24. You lose to the Raiders, still with a chance to make the playoffs, 31-24. That entire stretch resulted in John Gruden being fired and, ironically enough, the promotion of Raheem Morris. But that's what came to mind when I started thinking about this Buccaneers team that started 5-1. They were 6-2 at one point, and they are now 7-7 with 3 games to go and in danger of not winning the division for the first time since 2019. I hope they don't win the division. They don't deserve it. That would be an opportunity for Todd Bowles to once again save his job. I don't think he can save it just by winning the division. I think he would have to make a run to, at minimum, the NFC Championship. But it gives him that opportunity. So do you all want to sit through this again next year? I don't. I want to see a football team that plays to their ability. I want to see a football team that goes out there and wins the games that they're supposed to win. I want to see a football team that competes with the best in the NFL because they have the talent and the ability to do so. So when I take a look back at the 2008 Buccaneers and the collapse that they had that cost them not only a playoff spot, but a head coach, and then a decade of sadness, I look at this collapse as even worse. Because although that Buccaneers team was good, I didn't think that they were championship caliber. I didn't think that they were Super Bowl ready. This team was. And we can talk about injuries until we're blue in the face. They play a role, but at some point, you got to suck it up. You have to get through it. You had Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan come back for this. Mike Evans got a taste of that postseason when Tom Brady showed up in 2019, and he's probably going to wind up being the most angry member of the roster if they miss the playoffs this year, because he worked his butt off. Jalen McMillan worked his butt off to get back to where they are right now. Jalen McMillan broke 3 vertebrae in his neck, and he went out there and played. Mike Evans broke his collarbone, and he was out there playing. And playing for what? For their head coach to have his side of the ball implode all over again? You were 5-1. You are 2-6 over your last 8 games with back-to-back home losses to division rivals who were under 500. One had a rookie quarterback, and the other had a backup who lost his job to a rookie last year. You had a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter, and you freaking choked again. That's on Bowles. That's on this coaching staff. And it's time to clean house. Just wait until after the season, though. Again, I know in the heat of the moment, a lot of you are upset and you want Bowles fired tonight because it's going to give you some sort of relief or resolution. You got to think long term. That is not the right approach for 2026 and beyond. The right approach at this point is get the best draft pick that you can and replace one of those inside linebackers that isn't cutting it anymore. And I've seen a lot of people talking about a couple of different coaches. I'm going to address not only the John Gruden situation, but also some of you that are upset about why Todd Bowles is still the coach this season to begin with. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports. Bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. And the new Stacks feature lets you choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup. Like, I don't know, whatever tight end is facing the Buccaneers, maybe you want to take more on their receptions, yards, and touchdowns in a game. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Wrapping things up here on a post-game reaction episode of Locked On Bucs, and I'm gonna tell you guys now because I've seen it a little bit in the chat. I know I haven't gotten to a lot of the comments, but if you guys are using inappropriate language, if you guys are saying things that you should not be saying, I will ban you from the chat. Period. This is your one and only warning. There's no discussion. Some of the things that I have seen in the chat, though, and I've seen it on Twitter. I might have addressed it earlier this week on the show, but I'm going to address it again. Firing Todd Bowles is the right move for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Moving forward, they need a change. Hiring John Gruden is not the change that you need. Stop saying that you want them to rehire John Gruden. He's back in the Ring of Honor. He's on good terms with the ownership. He's got a good relationship with the franchise, and that's great. He is not a good head coach. Period. Full stop. So many people seem to forget what actually transpired throughout the Gruden era. All they remember is Super Bowl 37. Let me refresh your memory. He had some of the worst draft classes in the history of the franchise. And if you think John Gruden's going to come in here and not want full control, you got another thing coming. He went 12-4 in his first season with the team and won the Super Bowl. His overall record as a head coach with the Buccaneers was 57-55. So quick math tells me that outside of his first year with primarily Tony Dungy's team, he was a below 500 head coach. He didn't win another playoff game the rest of his coaching career after that Super Bowl. He went to the Raiders. He was bad there. The team was bad. They didn't make the playoffs. He is not the answer. I know he's fun on, his TikToks now, and he's fun to listen to, and he's fun to reminisce about. He is not the answer. His style is so far outdated that's why he was getting rocked with the Raiders. He made terrible personnel decisions. He made terrible coaching decisions. That's why he's not coaching. So stop saying that John Gruden is the smarter choice. I'd rather keep Todd Bowles. And the other thing that I want you to remember, because I've seen a lot of the never should have gotten rid of Cohen. The Bucs didn't get rid of Cohen. And he's having success in Jacksonville and all that. The Bucs didn't get rid of him. He snuck off in the middle of the night, went radio silent, and left them. They asked him, when they knew he was a candidate that the Jaguars wanted, what is it going to take to keep you? He gave them his list of demands, and he got it. They got owner's approval to give him whatever he wanted. And then when it was time to come sign the contract, he wouldn't answer phone calls. He wouldn't answer text messages. He didn't show up when he was supposed to because he snuck off to Jacksonville like a coward and didn't tell anyone. I don't care how good of a coach he is. That's not the kind of person that I want leading this football team. You want to preach about Buccaneer men and integrity and character and how these players conduct themselves that allow them to be drafted by the Bucs or ruled out by the Bucs? That is not the guy that you put in charge. If character counts, if integrity is important, that is not the person that you hire. You can win with a different coach that actually has integrity and character. So when everybody keeps complaining about how they shouldn't have let Liam Cohen go, they didn't. So stop saying it. He ran off like a child who was told that they couldn't go to their friend's house, so he snuck out the window and ran down the block to his friend's house anyway. I will have plenty to say about coaching candidates, who I think would be a good fit, who I think lines up perfectly with where this team is and where they can go. This is not the show for that. I mentioned Marcus Freeman. Some of you loved it. Some of you hated it. I think Nate Scheelhaase, who was a candidate for offensive coordinator, could be in play. You know, I've seen people talk about, I'm sorry, the name is escaping me, offensive coordinator in Seattle. You know, he might be a great choice. There's a lot of coaches out there that I think can get this offense to where it needs to be, can get the defense to where it needs to be, and lead this team through the rest of their Super Bowl window to compete for a championship. But I can promise you with 100% certainty, if you've never believed a single thing that I have said on this show, believe this: that person is not John Gruden. So stop talking about it. It's dumb. And if you don't believe me, go back and look. Go back and look at his season-by-season record. Go back and look at the games that they lost. Go back and look at his draft classes. This is the same guy that had a trade in the works to get Calvin Johnson. And when Detroit said that they wanted Brian Kelly, he said it was too much. And then Brian Kelly signed with Detroit the next season as a free agent. This is a guy that told Aaron Rodgers, if you are there at number 5, we will draft you and you will be the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they passed on him for Cadillac Williams. This is a guy that made every wrong decision in the draft you could possibly make. Gaines Adams was a top 5 pick. RIP, but Gaines Adams was a top 5 pick. He passed on Adrian Peterson, who was sitting right there. The rose-colored glasses need to come off. Super Bowl 37 was awesome. The rest of Chucky's tenure, not so much. We are going to be back with plenty more reaction to this game, as well as the fallout from NFL Sunday. All eyes are now on the Carolina Panthers New Orleans Saints game. Every single one of you better be saying who dat, because you need the Saints to win if you want this team to make the postseason. You're at the stage where you want Todd Bowles to be fired and you don't care about making the playoffs just to lose in the first round, then just enjoy your Sunday. You don't have the Bucs to stress about anymore. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Please make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @Yarcho_Bucs, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs, both of those places. Did Locked On Bucs make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we will drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club and get your favorite show ad-free with exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.